We have some new updates on Big 12 expansion from the Sic Em 365 crew. It surrounds Boise and Memphis yet again, and the Pac12, and who may or may not have a wandering eye out there. Welcome into the channel. I am John Kurtz. Please do click subscribe if you have not. I talk college football every day on this channel. Right now that means conference realignment every day on this channel. I aim to give the Big 12 a voice. The Sic Em 365 guys, I'm sure most of you have seen them on YouTube. They do great work. They have had some good reporting here throughout conference realignment, and we have another report that was filed yesterday. All right, I'm just going to get right into it here. As far as expansion is concerned, the next round of expansion for the Big 12, it says there is new information continuing to surface as the Big 12 is looking at its option for a Chapter 2 with expansion. Memphis and Boise State are in a very good position to be the next additions to the league. Now, this is far from the first time that has been said. It's not only Sic Em 365 that has said that. It does seem to be fairly common knowledge here that those would be the likely leading candidates if the Big 12 were to do it right now. Now, again, keep in mind that Dennis Dodd report about the Pac-12, that the Big 12 was hoping that eventually they could go to the Pac-12 to find some schools. It may take some patience still for Memphis and Boise, but out of what seem to be the most realistic options right now, it does feel like they top the list. Now, here's some information that would just kill me. If I were a Memphis fan, cover your eyes, cover your ears. It says Memphis was passed over as David Rudd, the university's outgoing president, didn't want to tie the hands of the incoming president with the demands of a new stadium. The university appears to want the new stadium built on campus, but there are politics involved, so stay tuned. As the Big 12 was eyeing the current AAC program closely, the league hoped Memphis would say it was all in on building the new stadium, but ultimately to make that commitment, they needed changes at the top. Oh, Memphis fans, I feel for you, man. If it legitimately was mainly a hang-up of a football stadium here that kept you out of the Big 12, that's a killer. That's a killer because that seems like the kind of thing that should be figured out if you're really going to level up your life, level up your program here in this situation. The Liberty Bowl is a problem. It's not a good stadium. I've been there twice now for the actual bowl game that K-State has played in. It's not the size that's the issue. With a lot of these stadiums, size can be one of the things that gets criticized. It holds 61K, so that would be toward the top right now of the new look Big 12. But it's how old and run down it is. The thing was built in 1965. It definitely needs something, whether it's a new stadium, upgrades, whatever. I've been there. It's not on par with most of what I see in the Big 12, where I'm traveling every single week or every other week or so during football season. Now, on the Boise front, that's the other team that always gets mentioned here. I think they clearly, to me, have the best football brand out of any of the realistic options that are left. And heck, probably have the best football brand, even if you're going to include those four schools from the Pac-12 that always come up. Boise is the best football brand of all. Here's what the report said about Boise. Additionally, traditional Group of 5 power Boise State still remains very much on the radar. University President Marlene Tromp has Pac-12 ties, and Athletic Director Jeremiah Dickey has ties to the Big 12 after his time at Baylor. Tromp is not expecting a Pac-12 offer, but the situation needs a little marinating. The Big 12 has made it clear when it's ready to launch another round of expansion, Boise State can't have delays in responding. Okay, so a couple of things as far as that goes. One, I think that sends the message like, hey, AKA, don't be sitting around waiting and hoping for a Pac-12 offer if you're Boise, right? Can understand why Boise would. Beyond just that there may be a little bit more money there, it's also, Boise probably feels more like a West Coast kind of a school than a Big 12 kind of a school, although I don't know that there's a crazy difference between that with the culture that is in place there. But the other thing is the Big 12 has to look at this and say, man, like we can't be like held to the fire publicly in that we're dragging our feet on expansion here. In other words, we can't have a school like Boise, publicly dragging their feet on accepting a Big 12 offer. That's really the better way to put it. We can't take that bad PR, and we just need to get this process moving if we are going to do it. And look how quickly the Big 12 was able to get Cincinnati, BYU, UCF, and Houston. 2 weeks after the Pac-12 said we're not expanding, Bob Bowlesby had them at press conferences, signed, sealed, ready to go. So that's how quickly things move that time. The Big 12 would certainly want to follow up on that momentum with that kind of a process again if they were to go after Boise. So I'm okay with the Big 12 operating from that position right now. Frankly, I think they can. I think they have at least enough power and stability at this point to operate from that position, whereas before, you may have been much more desperate before you had added those four schools to wait on a school like Boise if they were going to slow play that offer. One other thing I would add here is that I've mentioned, hey, the AAC is courting Boise. That was reported by Dennis Dodd of CBS Sports. These kinds of things being thrown out there about the Big 12 now would obviously lead you to believe that Boise just would not take an AAC invite very seriously right now, which, if the Big 12 is on some level flirting with you, if there is even an outside thought that, hey, maybe a Pac-12 offer comes at some point and the Big 12 is telling you, hey, no hesitation, you can't hesitate. Boise appears to have better options and things that they would rather wait around for than go to the AAC and deal with that headache and moving your teams out there and all of those things that it would take. Now, here comes the part of the report. I know some of you out there, especially those of you from Pac-12 country that do watch the channel, you'll be rolling your eyes at this. That's fine, but it is the second report that has now indicated that there are some schools in the Pac-12 that may have a bit of a wandering eye toward the Big 12, or at least be thinking about what their future is going to be. It says, finally, there is simmering that some universities within the Pac-12 are monitoring the Big 12's expansion efforts and have even informed the right people of the matter. According to sources, however, the Big 12 and Pac-12 have for now promised not to look at respective teams. Okay, well, that's very interesting. The article goes on to say, Bowlesby doesn't want to wait any longer and surely doesn't want to wait on what else the Pac-12 decides to do. Speculation continues to circle around the same group of Pac-12 programs that might be tied to watching the Big 12's future, and the four appear to all be tied together in future decisions. Okay, so a couple of things here. Again, this is the second report we've seen where there's some level of flirtation between Big 12 and Pac-12. You do with it what you will, but it's been Dennis Dodd at CBS Sports and now Sic Em 365. I'm just mentioning, that's not me. Those are two other sources two other outlets, not sources, that have said that. And again, I will continue to reiterate, I think the most likely scenario, and really the only realistic scenario where that were to happen, would be if Oregon and USC leave. But that's where I think a lot of me and the Pac-12 folks disagree. I think that's a very real possibility because I don't think the Pac-12 is going to get good news on that TV contract coming up. But I digress. I would speculate that the schools in question here are the Arizona schools plus Utah and Colorado. And I know that's already been floated out there. I think a process of elimination would basically get you there as well, because think about it. Oregon, USC, UCLA, Washington, Cal, Stanford, those are all going to be no-goes. No way that they would ever join the Big 12. Oregon and USC, UCLA, too powerful in terms of their brand. Washington probably falls in that category too. Cal and Stanford, they're going to thumb their nose at the Big 12. You know that would never, ever, ever happen. And then the Big 12 probably doesn't care about Oregon State and Washington State, right? And now you've eliminated everybody except for the four that are remaining, which is Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado. So that's why those really stick out. And look, on that note, if I'm in Pullman or Corvallis right now, I don't think I would be sleeping all that easy, wondering about what the future is of my league and what happens if anything starts to break apart, because those would be the schools I would imagine at the bottom of everybody's list when you're thinking about expansion. Now, as far as agreeing to stay away, right, like kind of a truce between the Big 12 and the Pac-12, I guess I just don't know why everybody thinks all of a sudden in conference realignment these gentlemen's agreements really mean anything or are going to hold up. Because we saw the same thing during the alliance, right? That it was a gentleman's agreement between the three leagues. They didn't need to sign anything. And we all kind of looked up and were like, what? I mean, there's no rules. It's a blood sport. There are no rules in conference realignment. Everybody is out to do what is best for themselves. And at the end of the day, that's what's going to happen. No one's caring about what's better for the game or what's better for a different league. So I roll my eyes at that. And if, I don't know, it makes me nervous that one side, if Bowlesby is going to take it seriously, but the Pac-12 wouldn't. I think there are just a lot of things that could happen on down the road. And that's a part of the point, too. There are so many things that can continue to happen in terms of dominoes falling. I would be careful about making any kind of promises like that. But to be fair, we also don't know the specific dialogue of what this agreement supposedly says and how it all went down. But the bigger picture here, I'm just going to keep beating this drum, man. It further reinforces the idea that the Big 12 and the Pac-12 are on fairly similar footing right now. It is not like the Pac-12 is markedly in a better spot than the Big 12. We'll find out what happens with their TV contract. I still think that is a massive thing that's being under-talked about right now, what news the Pac-12 will get on that front. But you know, if you've been watching this channel, everything on the field right now suggests the Big 12 is in a much better spot. Even the new-look Big 12 is in a better spot than the Pac-12. They've got money problems. They've got off-the-field problems, too. It all ties in together. I think both leagues are in very, very similar spots right now. In conclusion, too, if you are a Memphis or a Boise fan, I don't know that I would be expecting the Big 12 to pull the trigger really soon. Certainly my opinion would be the Big 12 should not pull the trigger on that in the immediate future, but you should be patient. I think clearly we've seen enough to say Boise and Memphis should be patient here because it may well work out in the end. It's going to do it for this video, guys. If you have not subscribed, again, please do. I talk college football every day on this channel. Right now, that means realignment every day on this channel. I aim to give the Big 12 a voice. Follow me on Twitter at @JLKurtz. You can find info on my daily radio show in the description of this video. And you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram at John Kurtz Show. Take care, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.